Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
San Diegans are doing what they can to help those affected by a deadly earthquake. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. And more than 20 million people are estimated to have been impacted by Monday's earthquakes in southern Turkey and northern Syria. Survivors are struggling to cope without food, shelter, or even heat. But the Islamic community in San Diego is rallying to help. And KPBS reporter Claire Strong went to meet some of them.
Since the tsunami in Indonesia in 2004, I didn't see a bigger scale of a natural disaster like this one.
Since Monday's devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, Imam Taha Hassan and volunteers at the Islamic Center of San Diego have been working hard to help those impacted. Every second counts for those trapped under the rubble, and rescuers are facing a desperate race against the clock to find survivors. At the center, and donations continue to pour in for the victims.
We have this blanket that has been donated to us. We also have some socks, a lot of winter coats, some baby food, a lot of, things to keep warm with in regards to the weather conditions in Turkey and Syria at the moment.
In addition to those items, first aid kits are also in short supply. Keith Buckner donated some of his granddaughter's diapers.
We're all human beings and we all need help from time to time, whether or not you're Muslim or Christian. Anyone is welcome to come to the Islamic Center to get whatever they need.
People have until Friday to drop off donations at the Islamic Center in Kearny Mesa. The donations will then be taken to LA before being flown by Turkish Airlines to the disaster zones. Imam Hassan isn't surprised by the generous response.
Every time our donations are needed wherever in the world, we always take action. So I'm very thankful to my community. And the other thing that I would like to say, just keep the victims in your prayers.
Claire Strong, KPBS News.
Time is running out to find survivors in places damaged by the earthquake. Isabel Rosales tells us about some of the successes and challenges for search and rescue teams.
Beneath crumbled neighborhoods, signs of life. On top of a pile of debris, rescuers cheer and carry a child to medical help. These two children and other survivors freed from the tangle of steel and concrete. Over in northwestern Syria, where some areas are controlled by anti-government rebels, aid agencies are especially worried. It's home to more than 4 million people already relying on humanitarian help.
This country has already been suffering from the devastation of the war. And now to have those crises, this earthquake on top of the crisis, it's like the perfect storm that nobody ever wished for.
Another worry, as cold settles in, many survivors now homeless and facing freezing temperatures. At this Istanbul Aid Collection Center, organized chaos, food, water, and other necessities stacked high. But it's not enough. Hospitals in war-torn Syria are overloaded, says UNICEF, and the widespread damage caused a temporary disruption to the United Nations' only approved crossing to deliver aid into Syria.
The fact is the Assad regime continues to block aid, and he, alongside Russia, have stopped and blocked cross-line and cross-border aid to millions of civilians that are out in the cold.
Calls are mounting for the U.S. and United Nations to do more. Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
The United States has deported thousands of military veterans who weren't born here, but some of those vets are now being allowed to return to the U.S. As KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us, 2 of them became citizens today.
In a fifth-floor conference room in the downtown offices of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a ceremony for two vets who served this country but then got deported. Retired District Director of the San Diego USCIS office, Deborah Rogers, quoted from a poem by Archibald MacLeish in her opening remarks.
The freedom of man and mind is nothing but a dream. They are right. It is the American dream.
The American dream come true at last for Army vets Leonel Contreras Tarango and Mauricio Hernandez Mata. Rogers detailed their service. Contreras, who joined up in 1976 at the age of 17, he served for a year and was honorably discharged. Hernandez, who served from 2000 to 2006, doing tours in Afghanistan, winning numerous medals. Rogers administered the oath of citizenship.
So help me God.
Let me introduce you to our newest citizens.
After receiving their naturalization certificates, Contreras and Hernandez spoke about what this day means to them.
I feel ecstatic. I feel very blessed. I feel very happy to be back on American soil.
For all you that weren't there, we did all those things for you all as well, so you all wouldn't have to. That's why many people couldn't walk in my shoes, because a lot of people are self-serving. We are not. We are servants of the people.
It was a very happy feeling, a lot of butterflies and a lot of happiness. Unbelievably, I couldn't believe it was happening, but it was, and it's a lot of joy.
Anybody that is willing to lay down their life, their sanity, and give up everything that they hold dear for American freedom should be eventually at one point in their lives considered a U.S. citizen, become a U.S. citizen, and have those same rights that American citizens that we fight for have.
And now they do. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Deportations of non-citizen military service members started after the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, which was passed in 1996. Under the Biden administration's initiative, more than 50 veterans have returned to the U.S. so far. For the first time, the Mexican government is saying it won't support the Remain in Mexico program. It forces asylum seekers to live in the country while their asylum cases are adjudicated. But KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis says that only works if Mexico is on board.
Enrique Lucero is the director of Tijuana's Migrant Services Department. He says Trump-era programs like Remain in Mexico and Title 42 created a humanitarian crisis at the border.
Ese fue el principio de la situación de la crisis humanitaria.
Both programs allow the U.S. to turn people away from the border instead of deporting them back to their country of origin. But it only works if Mexico agrees to accept migrants from other countries. So far, Mexico has taken in migrants from countries like Honduras, Haiti, Venezuela, Cuba, and Guatemala. Monday's opposition is the first time Mexico has publicly pushed back on this arrangement. Lucero says that it could be the beginning of the end for Remain in Mexico and Title 42, but it's a little too early to tell.
Pues vamos a ver cuál es la siguiente reacción, ¿no? No sé si aquí ya termina todo, nada más con un simple rechazo. A lo mejor si Estados Unidos seguirá insistiendo o le va a ofrecer algo, ¿no? Son acuerdos de alto nivel que nosotros como gobierno municipal pues no tenemos conocimiento.
He plans to wait and see how the U.S. reacts to Mexico's formal opposition. The U.S. could put even more pressure on Mexico to keep playing ball, or it could mean that President Joe Biden plans to finally terminate the Trump-era programs. On the north side of the border, advocates describe the news as too little, too late.
It's a long time coming. It should have been their stance from the very beginning.
That was Pedro Rios with American Friends Service Committee. He says thousands of migrants who were forced to return to Mexico ended up being kidnapped, assaulted, raped, and even murdered. Rios criticized Mexico for waiting too long to oppose Remain in Mexico, pointing out that the program isn't currently in use. He wants to see a similar opposition to Title 42.
It should be the same stance that they're taking on the Remain in Mexico program should be the stance that they take on Title 42, which we are seeing thousands of people that are being expelled from the U.S. whose due process rights are not being recognized.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
President Biden's message about gun violence during the State of the Union address resonated with some San Diego college students who've been in Washington, D.C. this week. The group of community college students has been there to lobby for support and more funding for higher education. But Alan Kuo, the student president of Miramar College, says it's not just about money and not just about higher ed.
The people going to college right now, or even elementary school, middle school, and high school, these kids are going to grow up to be the future of our country. And I think it's really important for them to have a safe space to learn and for them to have a stress-free environment so that they can succeed to the best of their abilities.
The student delegates watched the speech from their hotel room last night, and they're headed back to San Diego this evening. Outdoor dining was one of the ways restaurants stayed afloat during the pandemic. Now money is available to keep it going. The city of San Diego is making grants available up to $20,000. The money is meant to allow businesses to cover permitting and other costs to stay in compliance with city rules. Businesses in low or moderate income locations known as promise zones get priority. The IRS says some people need to wait to file their taxes this year, and that is because all of those state relief checks given out in 2022. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer looks at who will need to include the Middle Class Tax Refund on their tax returns.
Many California taxpayers got middle-class tax refunds last year in amounts ranging from $200 to $1,050. Tax accountant Ricardo Alvarez says it's caused some issues with this year's tax filings.
What has come up is, the questions about is it taxable in the federal level because it's not taxable on the state level of California.
The Franchise Tax Board says it sent out more than 6 million 1099 miscellaneous information forms to people who got at least $600. The IRS says tax filers who got the state payment and the 1099 should wait to file their federal tax returns. In a statement, they said they're working with state tax officials to get more information and clarity to taxpayers this week. Alvarez says his office in Imperial Beach is getting a lot of questions about the 1099 forms.
People are coming in with those notices, and the first thing I tell them is, like, don't concern yourself too much. And if it is taxable, it's not a game changer. It's just a small amount.
He says his firm and many others are taking the position that the refund in any amount is non-taxable at the federal level.
And now you're talking millions of people that have already filed are not going to have to get that corrected.
Some Californians are still waiting for the middle-class tax refunds, and in this case, that's actually not a bad thing. Anybody who got their payment on January 1st or later won't need to worry about the tax questions until next year. This year's filing deadline for most taxpayers is Tuesday, April 18th, a little later than usual, thanks to a weekend and a federal holiday. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
San Diego researchers have identified a new species of fish in the deep ocean waters near Costa Rica. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson shows us how an underwater video and some detective work led to the discovery.
Researchers were looking for large ocean mussels when they sent a robotic submarine 6,000 feet under the ocean surface. The target was the Heco Scar near Costa Rica. Charlotte Seed is the collection manager for benthic invertebrates at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography.
It's an area where methane is coming up from the seafloor, but at a slightly higher temperature than the rest of the ocean, which apparently is enough to attract animals that normally only like it hot at hydrothermal vents.
You should be able to see an almond footprint.
The researcher piloting the Schmidt Ocean Institute's unstaffed submersible has been here before, and it didn't take long to find prime mussel habitat among a minivan-sized tangle of worm shells. Seed points out the tangled habitat anchored on the seafloor in the video recorded by the dive team.
This is a fantastic group of tube worms. So these animals, each one looks sort of like a piece of pasta, but they're growing together. They're anchored in the sediment. They're getting energy from the chemicals and the microbes that live inside their tubes. And it's a great place to be a tube worm. Look at all of them.
It's also where the team recorded video of the newly identified and pink eel pout.
Little fish.
The color doesn't mean much on the ocean floor, where it's cold and dark.
There's probably no need for it to look especially flashy or to have extraordinary camouflage.
The fish looks like a small eel, and some species have a downturned mouth, reminding some of a sad, pouting fish.
Well, you can see they don't move very fast. And they don't go too far from their homes. So it's gone right back into shelter.
Seed says the fish lives on the ocean floor, and while the pink fish stands out on video, that color really can't be seen in the dark water. And they also haven't been seen outside of this geographically specific underwater habitat. Ben Frable is the manager of one of the world's largest marine vertebrate collections located in San Diego.
This section is kind of the group of fish, eel pouts, and their relatives. So as you can see, we have quite a lot of different species.
He's showing us what's best described as a fish library. The shelves, floor to ceiling, are full of underwater creatures perfectly preserved in sealed jars. This was Frable's first stop to identify the samples brought back by researchers in 2018. Since the samples didn't match up with anything, Frable turned to published literature.
I've taken a look, I'm going through the books, going through references, trying to match them up. They're not really resonating with anything I'm seeing.
So Frable reached out to a colleague in Denmark. Peter Rask Muller is the curator of the Danish Natural History Museum, and he's considered an authority on deep-sea bottom-living fishes.
He immediately recognized it as this genus that has only been described in the last 20 years. It's called Pyrolycus. It means pyro, fire, lycus, wolf, fire wolf.
Rask Muller knew immediately the fish was something new. Frable says that helps explain the lack of scales and the number and location of sensory pores on their bodies. Those pores are key to helping the fish find food.
These animals are living in environments that are pitch black, so they're kind of relying on not just their eyes, but other organs for sensing movement and prey and food around them.
There are only 4 samples available to researchers, 2 in San Diego and 2 in Denmark. And Frable says it's a reminder of how little scientists know about life on the ocean floor. The findings are published in the current edition of the journal Zootaxia. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And that story is an example of the in-depth feature reporting from the KPBS newsroom. You can stream more anytime on the KPBS YouTube page. That's where we also live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5.
We'll have a warm, breezy day on Thursday and dry conditions through Friday, but over the weekend we do see some changes coming. As we take a look at our weather headlines, yes, we're dry, yes, we're warm, but over the weekend it will turn cooler. The flow turns back onshore and there will be some showers around. As we take a look at the weather tonight, clear, a little chilly in the city, down to about 45 degrees. Temperatures around the area dropping to the upper 30s in Oceanside. El Cajon, low 40s. Ramona's at 39. Mount Laguna's down to 37 degrees. Here's a look at the future cast, satellite and radar. There's a little system sliding its way across the 4 corners through Colorado. As that moves through, that's giving us the strong offshore flow during the day on Thursday. So Thursday will be breezy and warm. Temperatures mid-70s, Oceanside, San Diego's up to 76, 80 in El Cajon. Borrego Springs hits 75 degrees. Friday should be a nice day, dry and mild. The winds will be easing. And then as we take you into the weekend, we see a trough coming down the coast here. So it will turn cooler. It's a big dip in the jet stream. That's the trough. And we'll see some showers. Snow levels coming down, too, to about 4,000 feet. So here's a look at our extended forecast. Pretty nice next couple of days. A little bit breezy on Thursday. Then it turns cooler over the weekend, and there may be a spotty shower around Saturday night into Sunday. Inland areas warm, and then much cooler for the weekend, a few passing showers. As we take you up into the mountains, dry the next couple of days, but over the weekend, gets chilly, and there could be an icy mix on Sunday. And in the deserts, it'll be nice and mild, cooler for the weekend. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Wave FC fans are marking their calendars now that the season schedule is out. San Diego's women's professional soccer team will begin their first full season at Snapdragon Stadium on Saturday, March 25th. They'll host the Chicago Red Stars. The regular season wraps up October 15th with a home game against Louisville. Several Wave stars, such as Team USA's Alex Morgan, will also take part in the Women's World Cup happening this summer. Less than a week out from the Super Bowl, and we're getting new information on the long-term effects of the game. Boston University CTE Center says it has analyzed the brains of nearly 400 former NFL players in recent years, and they found signs of the brain condition in more than 90% of those exams. CTE is a degenerative brain condition caused by repeated head injuries. Former San Diego Chargers star Junior Seau is among those found to have the condition following his suicide in 2012. Scientists at UC San Diego have designed a wearable heart monitor that they say could take the place of a hospital cardiogram. KPBS Sci-Tech reporter Thomas Fudge tells us about this new device about the size of a postage stamp.
Sheng Zhu holds in his hand a flexible card. It can adhere to someone's chest to capture and show the movements of the heart.
So this device can be worn on the human body for as long as 24 hours. But if needed, we can extend the wearing time.
It comes with an algorithm that analyzes the images to see if the heart is pumping enough blood. The data can be transferred to a laptop to display the images and show practical information that the untrained can understand.
Conventionally, those ultrasound technique needs a lot of training, and the data needs a lot of experience to understand. But with our technology, this simple patch, any person with minimum training can use it very well.
The ultrasonic cardiac imager, as its inventors call it, uses the same imaging technology used during pregnancy to look at the fetus in utero. But unlike with fetal imaging, Zhu says his ultrasound patch doesn't need to be manually repositioned.
The electronic scan called the phase array will be able to focus and scan the ultrasound beam in the human body. They will be able to actively looking for the target by itself, all done electronically by the program without manual scanning or repositioning of the device.
The ability to scan the heart and get analytical data is part of a movement toward wearable monitors. Other popular devices like the Fitbit allow people to keep track of their vital signs at home. Zhu says the new cardiac monitor is so user-friendly it means doctors in remote parts of the world can check heart functions without expert staff or an echocardiogram machine. Zhu says along with individual health-conscious users, he thinks the wearable patch would be valuable to patients at an ICU.
They are high risk of having those adverse events, and they need constant continuous monitoring 24/7. I think those technology will have the best use case to begin with in the ICU.
Along with a partner, Zhu has founded a company called Softsonics to commercialize the device. The ultrasonic cardiac imager will be marketed to the public in about 2 years. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
When Colorado became one of the first states to legalize marijuana, it also opened up cannabis culture in other ways. In Denver, that's visible in the International Church of Cannabis. That's now in trouble with the city for a display right outside its front door. Christian Lopez talked with the owner, who says that he's being unfairly targeted.
This is not your typical church.
We are sitting in the sanctuary at the International Church of Cannabis, also the location where we do our Beyond meditation and light show. People come here from all over the world.
Steve Burke is the founder of the International Church of Cannabis.
We named our religion Elevationism. You can be an elevationist Jew, an elevationist Christian, an elevationist Buddhist. You can be an elevationist atheist, as long as you believe in elevating yourself to a better version of self.
In front of the church, you'll notice a unique piece of artwork.
The name of the sculpture is Defender, and it was given to us by the artist as a symbol to defend our religious liberty at the church.
Ironically, Burke is now having to defend the sculpture itself.
This is the sculpture causing all of the controversy. It's bright pink. It's hard to miss when you're driving through the area. Steve says he got this letter in the mail from the city saying the sculpture shouldn't be here because it's dangerous and it needs a permit. They told him he has 2 weeks to do something about it or they're going to get rid of it for him.
The city claims it's an encroachment. And if that's the case, fine, give us proper time to get the permit. But if it's an encroachment for us, there are at least 45 other encroachments in Wash Park of neighbors who have things on their front lawns as well. So let's be fair. The city said if we don't remove it by February 17th, they will come with their bulldozers and remove it for us.
I took Burke's concerns directly to the city. In a statement, they said the statue in the right-of-way was flagged by an inspector as a potential safety hazard due to its location and height. They also said their instruction was for the church to reach out to the permitting team within 2 weeks. Adding, quote, the idea of us bulldozing in 2 weeks is ridiculous and would not align with any established practices. Burke is asking for more communication.
I've tried to get the city on the phone to just talk with them and see how we can be in compliance, and I have been unsuccessful so far. Tell me how I can be compliant. Give me time to be compliant.
And for his church to be treated more fairly in the neighborhood.
We've turned an eyesore in the community to arguably the most impressive art church in the world. Come and experience the art, the beauty, the principles of elevationism. I hope this place exists for 100 years.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Joe Biden sits down for an exclusive interview the day after his State of the Union address. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Inflation isn't reducing Americans' appetite to spend. NPR's Morning Edition has a report on more people burning through their savings and using credit cards, even as interest rates rise. And KPBS Midday Edition is talking about the political pressure on Governor Gavin Newsom to make progress on the state's homeless problem. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.